Have you ever wondered why some of our country's most influential figures, individuals who have spent their entire lives living in privilege, continue to claim victimhood? Consider, for instance, Michelle Obama. She attended Princeton without any financial burden, grew up within the ruling class, and yet still insists that she suffers from racism. The same can be said for Hillary Clinton, who attended Wellesley and has spent her entire career among the elite. Despite their lifelong comfort and wealth, both continue to assert that they are discriminated against. This raises a challenging question: why do they make these claims when their lives are worlds apart from the average American struggle? There is even an argument that these public figures showcase their supposed oppression through carefully chosen images. Side-by-side photographs are sometimes displayed, one of Jimmy Carter's modest home and the other of Barack Obama's, implying that there is some inherent injustice in where one lives. Critics argue that if Obama is truly a victim, shouldn't he experience life in a less affluent neighborhood rather than enjoying the comforts of an upscale residence? It is suggested that if Barack Obama were to truly embrace the plight of the ordinary citizen, he might be required to live in a less privileged area, a stark contrast to the luxurious lifestyles that many of his peers enjoy. This perspective posits that the only reason he was elected was not because of genuine policy achievements, but because he capitalized on his race. After spending 8 years as president, it is argued that he left behind a legacy marked by the deliberate inflaming of racial tensions. And yet, paradoxically, he is seen vacationing in places like Martha's Vineyard, one of the widest and most exclusive zip codes in the country. This discrepancy was brought to light in a heated discussion, where one of Tucker Carlson's guests dismantled the mainstream narrative surrounding the Obama legacy. The guest's arguments cut through the typical discourse, challenging the widely accepted ideas about identity politics and the enormous financial gains reaped by these elites. The conversation moved from dissecting the ideology of identity politics to exposing a network of financial influence, leaving even Tucker Carlson visibly taken aback. This critical perspective asks, are we really surprised by the extent of this hypocrisy? It appears that the inconsistencies and double standards are too glaring to ignore. Let's begin by examining the financial aspects, starting with a number that might leave you astonished. When Barack Obama assumed the presidency in 2008, his net worth was estimated at around $1.3 million, a modest figure by political standards. Fast forward to today, and his net worth has skyrocketed to at least $70 million. That is a tremendous leap in wealth, one that the public is led to believe is solely the result of lucrative book deals and high-paying speaking engagements. However, this narrative conveniently overlooks the existence of a sophisticated network of influence, favor exchanges, and financial channels that operate behind the scenes. The conversation does not stop with Obama. Tucker Carlson's guest pointed out that identity politics has evolved into one of the most profitable industries of our time. Major players in this realm, the Obamas, the Clintons, and even the Bidens, have turned victimhood into a veritable gold mine. Their platforms have been repurposed into multi-million-dollar industries that profit from portraying themselves as oppressed, despite living lives that are worlds apart from those they claim to represent. The analysis becomes even more pointed when considering the lavish lifestyles these individuals lead. For instance, these public figures frequently lecture on issues of privilege, systemic oppression, and inequality, yet at the same time, they are purchasing multi-million-dollar mansions in exclusive locations like Martha's Vineyard and Hawaii. When Barack Obama's presidential campaign was launched in 2008, there was a sense of admiration for his groundbreaking approach, a campaign that was innovative and seemed to promise a departure from the norm. Initially, many believed that his message was one of moving past racial divisions. However, over time, critics contend that his policies and actions began to mirror those of previous administrations, particularly the Bush policies, leading to a strategic pivot towards the culture wars during his re-election campaign. This pivot is highlighted by the contradictory statements coming from within his own family. Michelle Obama has publicly expressed that she lives in constant fear for her daughters in America, a sentiment that resonates with many who feel that their everyday lives are fraught with danger. Yet, simultaneously, she is known to spend millions on beachfront estates, a lifestyle that is far removed from the reality of struggling families who worry about everyday dangers such as grocery shopping or taking their children to school. The juxtaposition is stark. While many Americans face daily challenges and fear, a select few, despite claiming oppression, lead lives of unimaginable luxury. This raises the question, how can someone who resides in a $12 million mansion possibly be struggling in the same way that everyday Americans do? Numbers, in fact, tell the story even more clearly. Consider the fees charged for speaking engagements. Barack Obama reportedly earns around $400,000 per engagement, while Michelle Obama commands up to $700,000. Meanwhile, the Clintons have amassed over $230 million from speaking deals since leaving office. This is not merely about the sharing of ideas or inspirational messages. It is a pay-to-play system based on influence and status, a system from which the average American is conspicuously excluded, but the financial gains do not end with speaking. Engagements. The true wealth is derived from an array of sources including book deals, media partnerships, and charitable foundations that rarely address the very issues they purport to solve. After leaving the White House, the Obamas secured a staggering $65 million book deal. The Bidens, too, have benefited enormously, with reports indicating that they earned around $16 million within just 2 years of stepping down from power. The Clintons have not been left behind either. Their charity, once seen as a philanthropic endeavor, has evolved into what critics describe as a $230 million cash machine. What unites all these figures is a common strategy, using their platforms to promote division and identity politics, a tactic that ensures a continuous flow of revenue. This narrative is not unique to politicians. The text challenges other public figures who claim to be victims of systemic injustice, such as LeBron James and Meghan Markle. Despite their significant wealth and success, they too portray themselves as oppressed. The underlying implication is that these individuals, along with the political elite, craft a victim narrative to distract from a critical reality. They view the rest of us as inferior. By positioning themselves as victims, they attempt to create a false sense of unity with those they consider one of us, even though their lifestyles and experiences are utterly disconnected from the everyday struggles of ordinary citizens. Moreover, these same figures who preach about equity and justice are often the ones most adept at navigating and benefiting from corrupt financial systems. They decry corporate greed and demand that Americans pay their fair share in taxes, yet they are experts at channeling their wealth through tax havens and nonprofit organizations. They criticize climate change and environmental policies, yet they travel privately in expensive jets, all while residing in opulent estates. The pattern is unmistakable. This is not a fight about racial oppression or social inequity. It is a struggle over money, power, and control. Tucker Carlson's guest managed to encapsulate this narrative with such clarity that it left no room for doubt. The overarching message is that these political figures and celebrities are not, in fact, oppressed victims, but rather architects of a vast system of influence that benefits them enormously. Their claims of discrimination are seen as a smokescreen, a diversion designed to mask the realities of their privileged lifestyles and the true nature of their power. So the critical question remains, are we finally beginning to see through the facade? Or will the media continue to shield these individuals from scrutiny, demonizing anyone who dares to call out the contradictions in their rhetoric and behavior? The conversation that Tucker Carlson's guest ignited forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about identity politics and the enormous financial incentives that drive it. In an era where the lines between victimhood and privilege are increasingly blurred, it becomes imperative to ask ourselves who truly benefits from the narratives that dominate our political and cultural discourse. If you find yourself questioning the legitimacy of these narratives, you are not alone. The evidence presented, ranging from the staggering rise in personal fortunes to the lavish lifestyles and exorbitant speaking fees, suggests that there is much more at play than a simple struggle against oppression. These influential figures have built a lucrative empire on the very idea of victimhood, one that serves to distract from the significant disconnect between their experiences and those of ordinary Americans. In the end, the discussion is not merely about race or identity, politics. It is about a system in which money and power override the realities of everyday life. The key takeaway from this analysis is that the rich tapestry of victim narratives spun by these elites is carefully designed to keep us divided.